The night they cast me out, the elders didn't even raise their voices. They just sat there in the Kingdom Hall back room. 3 men in cheap suits, Bibles open like weapons, and read the announcement I dreaded since I first whispered my doubts to myself in the mirror. Leah Thompson has been disfellowshipped for apostasy. Apostasy. The word tasted like rust. I was 19, still wearing the modest skirt my mother had hemmed for me the week before, and suddenly the only family I'd ever known looked through me like I was already dead. It wasn't dramatic like in movies. No screaming, no dramatic door slamming. Just silence. The kind that presses on your chest until breathing feels optional. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My little brother, 12 and already baptized, stared at the carpet like it might swallow him before he had to choose sides. The congregation filed out without a word. No hugs, no "we'll pray for you," nothing. Just the soft click of the double doors shutting behind them, locking me on the wrong side forever. I walked home in the dark, 3 miles because they wouldn't let me take the family car anymore. The streetlights buzzed overhead like judgmental insects. My backpack held everything I own now. 2 changes of clothes, my Bible, ironic, right? A half-empty bottle of shampoo, and the $47 I'd saved from babysitting gigs the elders said were worldly. No phone. They'd taken that too, said it was a tool of Satan. I didn't cry until I reached the old playground behind the hall. Sat on the swing that used to creak under my weight when I was a kid waiting for meetings to end, and realized no one was coming to look for me. The community had rules sharper than knives. Question the 1914 doctrine? Whisper about blood transfusions being a personal choice. Read an apostate book once, just once, out of curiosity? That was enough. I'd done all 3. Started with a Google search at the library computer when I was 17. What if Armageddon doesn't come? And ended with me telling my Bible study conductor I couldn't pretend anymore. She cried. Told me I was breaking Jehovah's heart. Then she reported me. That first night, I slept on a bench in the bus station. Security guard woke me at 4 a.m., said I couldn't stay. I wandered until dawn, ended up at the women's shelter downtown. The intake lady asked if I had family. I laughed short bitter and said, not anymore. She gave me a cot, a hygiene kit, and the number for a crisis hotline. I didn't call. What would I say? My entire world just decided I'm demon-possessed because I asked why paradise doesn't include questions. The next weeks blurred into survival. I got a job at a 24-hour diner because they paid cash under the table and didn't ask for ID right away. Night shift, perfect for someone who couldn't sleep anyway. I'd flip burgers for truckers at 3 a.m., listen to their stories about bad divorces and long hauls, and think, at least your pain has paperwork. My uniform smelled like grease and regret. Tips were enough for a weekly room at the cheapest motel that didn't rent by the hour. Cockroaches the size of quarters. I named the biggest one Elder Silas after the head elder who'd read my disfellowshipping announcement. I'd talk to him when the silence got too loud. You think Jehovah's mad at me for eating shrimp, Silas? Or just for thinking? I was terrified of everything. The world. They'd warned me about my whole life turned out to be mostly bored people buying lottery tickets and arguing over parking spots. But the fear they'd installed ran deep. Every headache felt like demonic attack. Every stranger's glance felt like judgment. I kept waiting for Armageddon to start so I could prove them wrong, or right, and end the uncertainty. One night a regular, a woman in her 40s named Carla, tattoos up her arms, always ordered the same black coffee and eggs over easy, saw me crying in the break room. She didn't pry at first. Just slid a napkin across the table with her number on it. If you need a couch, kid. No questions. I stared at that napkin like it was contraband. Accepting help from worldly people was forbidden. But I was already forbidden everything else. I called her 2 nights later when the motel manager said rent was due, and I was $20 short. Carla picked me up in a beat-up Honda, drove me to her duplex, gave me the spare room with clean sheets and a lamp that actually worked. She didn't preach. Didn't ask why a girl my age had no phone, no bank card, no plan. Just said, stay as long as you need. Eat what's in the fridge. And if you want to talk, I'm here. If not, that's fine too. That kindness broke something in me. I cried for hours on her pull-out couch while she watched reruns in the next room with the volume low. No one had been gentle with me in so long I'd forgotten what it felt like. I started small. Got a library card. Felt like stealing fire from the gods. Read everything. Science, history, philosophy. Books that said the earth was billions of years old. Articles about how cults use fear to control. The first time I read the word shunning, in a psychology context, I threw up in the bathroom stall. It wasn't just my community. It was a tactic. A weapon dressed as love. I enrolled in community college part-time. Financial aid covered tuition. Pell Grants bought me ramen and bus fare. I majored in computer science because code doesn't judge. Doesn't care if you once believed the governing body spoke for God. It just runs if you write it right. Nights I studied at Carla's kitchen table while she graded papers. She was a high school English teacher. And we talked about everything except religion until we talked about religion. She'd grown up Catholic, left after her own questions got too big. Faith isn't supposed to make you smaller, she said once. If it does, it's not faith. It's fear wearing a halo. I got my first apartment at 21. A studio above a laundromat, smelled like dryer sheets and detergent. My own key. My own bed. No one telling me what to think. I bought a cheap laptop, taught myself Python from free YouTube videos. Built my first website for a local bakery Carla knew. They paid me $400. I framed the check before I cashed it. The doubts never fully left. Some nights I'd wake up convinced the end was coming and I'd be destroyed for leaving. I'd sit on the floor hugging my knees until dawn. But I kept going, kept coding, kept reading, kept breathing. By 24 I'd launched a small app. Nothing revolutionary, just a tool for small nonprofits to track donations and volunteers. It was clunky, but it worked. Word spread in local charity circles. A few grants came in. I hired a part-time designer, then a developer. The company, called Haven, because that's what I needed and what I wanted to give, grew quietly. No hype, no venture capital drama. Just steady clients who needed help organizing good without the overhead. I started therapy at 26. Found a counselor who specialized in religious trauma. She didn't flinch when I told her I'd been taught the world was Satan's playground. Just nodded and said, "That must have been exhausting, carrying all that fear." We unpacked the guilt like old suitcases. Layer by layer, mothballs and all. I don't hate the people who raised me. I hate what the system did to them. My mother still sends letters sometimes, Bible verses mostly, with a PS asking if I've come to my senses. I don't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of self-preservation. The last time I saw my brother, he was 16 and wouldn't look at me in the grocery store. I smiled anyway. He walked away. That hurt more than the disfellowshipping. But here's the thing no elder ever told me. The world doesn't end when you leave. It begins. Messy, scary, beautiful. I have friends now who know my whole story and still invite me to barbecues. I have a dog named Doubt, black lab mix, terrified of thunder, just like me. I have a life I built brick by skeptical brick. Sometimes I drive past the Kingdom Hall on Sunday mornings. See the cars pulling in, families dressed in their best, smiling like everything makes sense. I don't feel anger anymore, just a quiet sadness. For the girl I was, who believed so hard it almost killed her spirit. For the people still inside, afraid to ask the questions that could set them free. I don't know if there's a God out there. If there is, I hope he's kinder than the one they taught me about. Kinder than the one who demands silence in exchange for love. Because if love requires you to erase someone, it's not love. It's control. And I finally stopped obeying. The first real paycheck after the disfellowshipping felt like stolen goods. $87.43 in crumpled bills from the diner's tip jar. Handed over by the night manager who smelled like cigarettes and never asked why a girl my age worked graveyard without ever mentioning school or family. I tucked it into my sock like contraband and walked the 2 miles back to Carla's duplex under a streetlight moon. That money bought ramen, a bus pass, and the cheapest flip phone money could buy. No data, no internet, just enough minutes to call Carla if I got scared at 3 a.m. I still remember the cashier's board, "Have a nice day," as she rang up the ramen. It felt like permission to exist. Carla's place was my lifeline for 6 months. She never charged rent, just asked me to do dishes and keep the plants alive. In return, she taught me how to budget on scraps, how to spot a scam landlord, how to file taxes when you're barely making minimum wage. She also left library books on the coffee table. Nothing religious, just novels, science magazines, a dog-eared copy of Sapiens that changed the way I saw time. I read it in stolen hours between shifts, highlighter in hand like I was studying scripture again. But this time the words didn't judge me. Odd jobs came next. I cleaned houses on weekends, scrubbing toilets for women who paid cash, and sometimes left leftover casseroles in the fridge with notes that said, "Eat up, honey." I walked dogs in the evenings, taught myself how to use a leash app on my new used smartphone. I stocked shelves at a dollar store where the manager yelled at everyone but paid on time. Each gig felt like stacking bricks, unsteady, unglamorous, but mine. I saved obsessively. Every dollar went into a shoebox under Carla's guest bed until I had enough for first month's rent plus deposit on a basement studio that smelled like mildew and freedom. The self-education started small and obsessive. The public library became my new Kingdom Hall. Free Wi-Fi, quiet corners, computers that didn't time you out if you were polite. I started with Khan Academy because it felt safe. Math first, then basic programming. Python looked like gibberish until it didn't. I'd sit there for hours, earbuds in, typing print, "Hello world." Like it was a prayer I finally believed in. When it ran without errors, I cried in the bathroom stall. Not dramatic tears, just quiet, surprised ones. Something worked. I made something work. YouTube became my secret seminary. Channels run by patient people who explained loops and functions like they were telling bedtime stories. I watched until my eyes burned, paused videos to copy code line by line on notebook paper because my laptop was too slow to run 2 tabs. I built stupid things. A program that texted me when the bus was late, using a free API I found after 3 hours of Googling. A script that organized my shift schedule into color-coded calendars. Each tiny victory felt like defiance. The elders had said the world's knowledge was poisoned. Turns out it was just knowledge. I got my GED at 20. Scored high enough that a community college counselor pulled me aside and said, "You should think about scholarships." I laughed, out loud, awkward, because scholarships were for normal kids with transcripts and recommendation letters. But she pushed the paperwork anyway. I applied for everything. Pell Grants, local foundations for non-traditional students, even one for people who'd left high-control groups. I didn't know those existed until then. Piece by piece, aid came through. Tuition covered. Books paid for. A laptop stipend that let me upgrade from the wheezing Dell to something that didn't overheat if I ran VS Code for more than 20 minutes. College was terrifying and exhilarating. I sat in the back row, hoodie up, convinced everyone could smell the cult on me. But no one cared. The girl next to me in Intro to Programming shared her notes when I missed a lecture because of a double shift. The TA stayed late to debug my code without making me feel stupid. I started raising my hand, started asking questions, started believing I belonged. By 23, I was freelancing on the side. Upwork at first, small jobs. Fixing WordPress sites, building landing pages for local therapists and bakeries. I charged $25 an hour and felt like a thief. Clients paid anyway. Word spread. A nonprofit Carla knew needed a donor database. I built it in Django over 3 weeks of late nights. They paid $4,200 and referred me to 3 more organizations. I quit the diner. Kept the dog walking gig because I liked the quiet walks and the way the dogs didn't ask for explanations. The startup idea came during a particularly bad thunderstorm. Power flickered. My laptop died mid-deploy. And I sat in the dark thinking about how many small charities I'd worked with that still used Excel spreadsheets and prayed donor checks didn't bounce. What if there was software that just worked? Affordable, simple, secure. No enterprise bloat, no hidden fees. Just a tool that helped good people do good without drowning in admin. I called it Haven, not because I was sentimental, okay, maybe a little, but because that's what I'd needed, a safe place to land. I built the MVP alone in my basement apartment. React frontend, Node backend, PostgreSQL on a cheap DigitalOcean droplet. It tracked donations, sent automated thank yous, generated reports that didn't look like they were designed in 1995. I tested it with 2 local food banks who let me use their real, anonymized data. They loved it. Offered to pay $49 per month each if I kept it running. I launched quietly. No big marketing budget. Just posts in nonprofit Facebook groups, cold emails to orgs I'd freelanced for, a landing page that said exactly what it did and how much it cost. First month, 7 subscribers. Second month, 23. By the end of year 1, almost 200. Monthly recurring revenue hit $12,000. Enough to hire a part-time support person, a former teacher who knew how to talk to nervous treasurers. Then a junior developer who actually understood React better than I did. We stayed lean. Remote team, no fancy office. I paid people well because I remembered what it felt like to work for nothing. Equity was real, not symbolic. When we hit $50,000 MRR, I flew everyone to a cabin for a week. No work, just hiking and bad board games. Mara, yes, same Mara from the other story arc. We'd met in an online dev community, joined as CTO after her own startup tanked. She brought dry humor and zero tolerance for scope creep. Leo handled design and kept insisting we make the dashboard feel like breathing instead of drowning. They became the family I'd lost, and then some. At 27, Haven crossed $1 million in ARR. Not flashy, steady, profitable, growing because people needed it, not because we gamed algorithms. Nonprofits started writing about us in their newsletters. A foundation gave us a grant to offer discounted tiers to smaller orgs. I started speaking at charity tech conferences, nervous as hell at first, then finding my voice. I talked about building tools with heart, about how software could reduce suffering instead of just moving money around. Success didn't erase the past. I still flinch at certain Bible verses quoted in movies. I still have dreams where the elders show up at my door with pamphlets and disappointment. Therapy helps. So does doubt, the black lab who sleeps on my feet during Zoom calls and growls at thunderstorms like they personally offended him. I don't talk to my biological family. The letters from my mother stopped after I sent one back. Short, polite, final. I'm happy. I hope you are too. Please don't write again. My brother's Facebook is private. I don't look. The shunning worked in reverse. It freed me to build something they'll never understand. But I don't hate them. I pity the machine that convinced them love has conditions stricter than steel. I pity the girl who believed it for so long she almost disappeared. These days my apartment has plants Carla taught me to keep alive. My fridge has food that isn't ramen. My calendar has dinners with friends who know my whole story and still show up. Haven employs 12 people who believe in the mission. We're not changing the world, just making it a little less bureaucratic for the people who are. Sometimes late at night, when the code is compiling and the city is quiet, I think about 19-year-old me sleeping on a bus station bench, convinced the world ended because I asked one honest question. I want to tell her, it didn't end. It cracked open. And everything beautiful came through the crack. The notification came at 2:17 a.m. on a Thursday. I was still in the living room of my new apartment. Big windows overlooking the river. Plants finally thriving because I'd learned how to water them without drowning them, scrolling through email when the LinkedIn chime hit. I almost ignored it. Late-night messages are usually spam or desperate recruiters. But the name stopped me cold. Sister Grace Mwangi. Not her real name anymore. She'd changed it after getting married. But I knew that profile picture. Same soft smile, same modest headscarf, same eyes that used to look at me like I was the prodigal daughter she could still save. We'd been in the same pioneer group at 19, knocking on doors together, memorizing scriptures side by side. She'd been the one who cried hardest when they announced my disfellowshipping. Or so I thought. The message was polite. Too polite. Leah, I saw the article about Haven in the nonprofit newsletter. I'm so proud of you. You've done something amazing. I've thought about you often. Can we talk? I miss my friend. I stared at the screen until my eyes watered from not blinking. Proud. Miss my friend. The words felt like someone had reached through time and slapped a band-aid on a wound that had never stopped bleeding. I didn't reply that night. Or the next. But the messages kept coming. LinkedIn, then Instagram. She'd found my barely used account. Then email. Each one a little more emotional. She talked about how the organization had changed, how some elders had stepped down, how she'd questioned things herself after her own daughter started asking hard questions. She said she'd prayed for me every day since I left. Said she regretted not reaching out sooner. Said she was sorry for the silence. Dr. Patel, my therapist who specializes in high-control group recovery, called it love bombing with a side of guilt. She said the community often sends emissaries when someone succeeds publicly. Not because they've changed, but because success outside the group threatens the narrative. See? Jehovah blesses obedience. If I was thriving without them, the whole system looked shaky. Still, part of me, the part that still remembered singing kingdom songs in the car with Grace on long service routes, wanted to believe her. So I agreed to a video call. Neutral ground. My rules. No recording, no screenshots, and if it fell off, I'd end it. She looked older, tired around the eyes. Same warm voice though. We talked surface stuff first, her daughter starting college, her husband's new job, how the congregation had grown. Then she pivoted. I've been reading about religious trauma, she said softly. I didn't understand back then what shunning does. I was scared. We all were. But I see now it was wrong. I'm sorry, Leah. Truly. I waited for the but. It came. I wonder if you've thought about coming back. Not right away. Just talking to the elders. They've changed the way they handle things. Your story could help so many people. And you'd have family again. Real family. There it was. The ask wrapped in apology. Not money. Not yet, but access. Influence. A way to fold my success back into their story. Look what Jehovah did for our lost sheep when she returned. I ended the call politely. I appreciate the apology, Grace. But I'm not coming back. I'm happy where I am. She cried. Said she understood. Said she'd pray for me. The next week the emails shifted tone. Subtler at first. I told the elders about our call. They're praying for you too. Then, some brothers are concerned you're leading people astray with your app. They say it helps worldly organizations instead of theocratic ones. Then the guilt. Your mother still cries every meeting. She misses you so much. I blocked her on everything. That should have been the end. But Grace had always been thorough. The first hit was subtle. A 1-star review on Haven's Google business page from an anonymous account. This company supports anti-religious causes. Don't trust them. Then another. Founder is an apostate spreading lies about Jehovah's Witnesses. 3 more in the same day, all from different IPs but worded almost identically. Mara caught it first. Leah, check your reviews. Someone's brigading. We removed them. Google flagged them as coordinated, but the damage lingered. A few small nonprofits emailed asking if the claims were true. I answered honestly. I left a high-control religious group years ago. Haven is secular and helps any nonprofit that needs it. No agenda beyond making admin easier. Most stayed. A couple left. Then the direct messages started. Fake accounts on LinkedIn, Instagram, even Twitter. You're hurting families. Jehovah sees everything. Repent before it's too late. One included a photo of my apartment building, taken from the street. My heart stopped. I live on the 4th floor. Someone had been there. I installed cameras that night. Doubt slept closer to the door. The escalation came fast. A letter arrived at the office, hand-delivered, no stamp. Inside, a printed screenshot of my therapy appointment confirmation. How? A photo of my mother crying at a meeting and a note. We know where you live. Come home, or we'll make sure everyone knows what you really are. I called the police. They took the letter, said it was harassment, but hard to trace without more. Suggested a restraining order. I filed anyway. Grace messaged one last time from a new account. This isn't what I wanted, but the brothers are upset. They say you're slandering the organization. If you take down the app or issue a statement saying you respect our beliefs, this stops. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Same one who'd helped with the nonprofit incorporation. Sarah didn't laugh this time. She got angry. This is textbook coercive control. We're going for a protective order, cease and desist, and if they push, defamation countersuit. The hearing was quiet. Grace didn't show. The judge, a woman who looked like she'd seen every flavor of family drama. Read the messages, the letter, the review logs. Granted the order. No contact, no third-party contact. Stay 500 feet away from me or my business. Violation meant arrest. Silence followed. Blessed, terrifying silence. 3 months later a package arrived at Carla's house. Forwarded to me because I still used her address for sensitive mail. No return sender. Inside, a handwritten letter from Grace. She said she'd left the organization. Her daughter had asked too many questions, and when Grace defended her, the elders disfellowshipped them both. She was living with her sister now, starting over. She wasn't asking for forgiveness or money. Just wanted me to know she finally understood. Said she was in therapy. Said she was proud of what I'd built. I read it twice. Didn't cry. Didn't feel warm forgiveness. Felt relieved. Like a chapter had closed without me having to write the ending. I didn't reply. But I kept the letter in the same drawer as my old Pioneer notebook. The one with scriptures underlined in pink. Proof that people can wake up. Proof that I wasn't alone in walking away. Life kept moving. Haven crossed 2 million ARR. We hired a full support team, launched a mobile app, partnered with international aid groups. I spoke at a conference on ethical tech for nonprofits. Someone in the audience asked about religious trauma and building after leaving. I answered honestly. The room clapped. No one shunned me afterward. My circle grew. Mara became my unofficial COO and sister. Leo designed our new branding and still sent memes at dawn. Carla retired, but still calls to check if I'm eating vegetables. Doubt got a little brother, a rescue terrier named ? Who chews everything. My neighbors know me as the dog lady with the startup. They bring me cookies when they see me walking both pups at once. I don't go near kingdom halls anymore. Don't need to. The fear that used to wake me at night has dulled to a background hum. I still double-check locks. Still scan crowds for familiar faces. But mostly I feel free. Grace reached out because success made me visible again. She tried to pull me back because that's what the system taught her. When that failed, others tried fear. When fear failed, she finally saw the cage for herself. I don't hate her. I don't hate any of them. I just don't owe them my life. What I do owe is to the girl who slept on a bus bench at 19, convinced she'd lost everything. I owe her the apartment with river views, the dogs, the team that shows up every day, the quiet mornings where I drink coffee and code without anyone telling me it's wrong. I owe her the truth. You were never lost. You were just looking in the wrong place for home. And home turned out to be something you build yourself. One line of code, one honest question, one real friendship at a time.